what happens when a woman looks at the shirt is sometimes they think to themselves, I'm not like that. I'm not like that beautiful person or whatever they may feel about themselves. And they actually kind of push it away, and they rather have no model in there at all because they don't feel like they're a model in that shirt. They envision themselves in that product. So that's actually turning into a trend away from those beautiful people that are displaying these products. That's why the flat lays are taking over.
Welcome to Built Online. I'm Cody McGuffie, and this podcast is all about one thing: building the business of your dreams. Selling art, teaching classes, starting a blog, launching a brand, whatever your passion is, we show you how to turn it into real income. I created EverBee to help anyone with a dream start and scale business.
EverBee.
And we now serve over 800,000 creators all across the globe. On this show, we bring on real entrepreneurs who've done it. They share their secrets, they share their failures, the exact steps that you can take to get started. What if you can get one golden nugget out of today's episode? And it's the breakthrough that takes you from just dreaming to actually living a life on your terms. At EverBee, we believe that every human is a creator, and every creator should own a business. Brad, what's up, man?
Oh, lots going on here, Cody. How you doing?
I'm great, man. Thanks so much for coming on. You've come on, I think, twice now, or maybe once in the past recently. So it's the second time on. I'll link to that show into the show notes. But very, very grateful for you to come back on and share your time with us, man. How are you?
Really good. In this rapidly changing world, there's so much going on. It's really a very interesting time in the e-commerce world, especially the Etsy world.
Totally, man. And you're seeing a lot. Like you see a lot of different seller accounts. Like you talk to a lot of Etsy sellers in your network. Obviously, you do this for a living. You have your own, your wife has her own Etsy shop, but you also coach other Etsy sellers on how to grow their shop. So that's why it's like a unique perspective, right? It's not just like one seller and their experience, whether that's good or bad. It's like you actually see a lot of experiences. So you get to see the sellers that are crushing it, absolutely just crushing it. And then you have to like more of like the medium in the road sellers who are, they're doing well, but they want to grow more. And you have the ones that are brand new. And they're just like, hey, I'm just getting started. And like, I have no idea what to do. You get to see all that, right?
Yeah, we get the wide spectrum of everything in between too. That is Etsy. And so I think one of the interesting parts that I get to see is that since, we're involved in helping people with their listings, we get to see the results of changes to listings. And I think that's like one of the most important things. What is it that you could do to your listings to get more views? And they actually track it. And then I analyze the results. So I'm literally on a daily basis, oftentimes going through hundreds and hundreds of modified listings. And so what I get to see is before they modified the listing, how many visits were they getting? Modified the listing 30 days afterwards, what was the result of that change? And from tags to titles to images to descriptions to shop changes to videos, I get to see all those results every day. I'm just studying these.
Sure, you live in it.
Yeah,
when you live in something, it's just like your regular day. Like you pick up on subtle things, right? It's not even like you have this like magic insight necessarily. It's more like, no, I've just been living in this for the past 5 years or 3 years. And you get to just pick up on little subtle things. Like EverBee, we experience the same thing. Like we look at data all day on Etsy sellers, literally like hundreds and millions of listings we get to look at and kind of just study. And do we have like insights every single day? No, but we're just around the data. And you just get to learn like a lot of just like ins and outs of certain things just because you're around it. That's all it is.
And especially the one thing that pops up is that there's a ton of myths and ton of beliefs that people really do believe from watching all sorts of things. And we kind of do some myth busting on a daily basis because the data proves, things. I'll give you a couple examples if I can.
Yeah.
A couple myths that are out there. One of the ones I see like is number one myth is that the faster you can get to 1,000 listings, the better you'll do. And I actually get to see data from shops that have that journey month by month and increase their listings to see if that is in fact true. And I've known that, there are many false things. That's one real good myth that's out there.
Real quick on that. Let's stay there for a second, actually, because that's actually a really, really common thing, like on social media and TikTok and YouTube and stuff like that is Not that I fully disagree with it, but I don't blanketly agree with it either, right? I'm like, let the data talk for a second. Just because you have 1,000 listings, does that mean you're more successful than somebody that has 100 listings or 10 listings, right? And the answer to, in your head, it sounds like it is not necessarily no. Most cases, it's not. Is that correct?
Yeah, it would depend on the quality score of those listings. And so the ones that just kind of slap them up and put them up with little thought, it can have the opposite kind of a boomerang effect where you're not really seeing any change. It's a flat line. And in fact, sometimes it can even go down because of that quality score. But that ultimately, that's the proof that I'm seeing. If it's quality and it's 1,000, yeah, for sure, it'll do great.
Of course.
But,
It's like having 1,000 quality products out there in the world, of course, right? But like, I generally understand where that narrative is coming from, right? Like there's a certain amount of real estate that's available, on Etsy, or I guess not a certain amount of real estate, but the point is like there's all opportunities, right? If you think of like Etsy as like real estate, and if you're covering more of the real estate, right, with your listings, with your properties, or however you want to describe it, I'm going deep in the real estate game, but the more chances that people are going to see your thing and then click on your thing and then buy on your thing. But that's not necessarily reality, right? It's like all your listings don't even get seen. You get buried way, way back to where you don't even exist, basically, right?
And not just buried, but your time is just evaporating, going after it. It's really much better to thoughtfully produce a block of listings, do your research, do the proper, quality, it's about quality, not quantity.
Mm-hmm.
Release those, study the results, make your next batch based on the results from the previous one. And then you can see if what you're doing has a good effect or not. But if you just randomly put them, publish, and don't track them, don't watch the results, you never know where you're going to end up.
You're throwing stuff at a wall and hoping something sticks, and that's one approach. It's not like it's terrible, but it's just like it's not the best use of your time, probably, right? You're probably better off like thinking about who you want to serve, who your shop wants to serve, or what kind of products you want to make, and then like researching it and validating it, making sure that like, hey, are people looking for this thing? Are they buying these types of things? And then you identify something that that works, right, numbers wise. And then you say, okay, well, how can I make this better?
Yeah.
How can I make this better? And then you sell it, and then you create an awesome listing based on what you're saying, like with the quality score you're mentioning.
Yeah, totally. And one of the things that I find that's kind of connected to the volume is in order for Etsy sellers to, get this they go after this high volume, but they try to push out the products by duplicating the exact tags and titles of other listings that are really selling well. Now, this is actually a very good way to go about it, but not identically. This is one of the fallacies or the myths that's out there, is that if you just go to the best-selling listings and you take their tags and you take their titles, that it's going to do just as good for you as it did for them. Now, I want to, if I could just dig into that a little bit.
Yeah, please. Let's go there.
About the reasoning and the fallacy behind, like the falsity behind the reasoning. Some things that somebody doesn't know when they do that is how long that listing has been published. And that's why, when we use EverBee as an example, it has the listing history in there. Mm-hmm. Like it has the age of that particular listing.
Yep.
Now, if it's a bestseller in the last couple of months, okay, that might be good data. It might work for you. But it might not work for you because there's a quality score that your shop has been assigned to. It takes about 60, 90 days for that quality score to be really stable and solid. And so if that person 3 months ago had created this and they're a bestseller, there might be you could mine some great data from that, but you probably don't want to take every single one of them. Mm-hmm. The idea behind it is that like it's working for them and they're getting some traction. And that's coming from a listing that's already at a quality score in their shop. So it's good for ideas, but not like a perfect duplication. I don't get great results from just a simple duplication. You need original.
Yeah, you got to put your brain on it too, right? Like use the data, but like use your noggin here, right? It's like a very common strategy that we've realized, and this isn't even our strategy. It was more so just like it started just becoming a strategy that people use, and it seemed people getting a lot of results. Is that they find a product that's selling well. They make a product that's similar, maybe they improve it by, adding a second product into the listing or whatever they do, right? The point is they use EverBee to find a product, they make the product. Then they take a best-selling product that's pretty similar to their new one, and they take the titles and they take the tags directly and they paste it into their listing. That's, like you said, not a bad strategy. But just expecting it to perform the same just because you took the same stuff is not reality. And the idea here is that you can copy the tags and put them in yours. There's no shame in that, but just tweak them, make sure it makes sense for your listing. Right? That's what you're saying.
And when they publish it and they, watch it for a couple of weeks or a period of time, if they're not seeing any improvement, I try to identify the weak tags, pull them out, replace them with some strong tags, and track that. So if you want to increase those visits, it's necessary to identify what's really stopping that listing from going forward. And every part needs to be focused on one part at a time. If you mix in tags with titles and make both changes, you have no idea which or what made the difference. So one thing at a time instead of everything at once can lead to result. Single it out.
I've done that myself, right? I remember I'm just oh, this listing isn't performing. So just change everything, change the title, change the tags, just change it all. And I'm sure enough, I'm the same results are the same, occasionally you'd have one get totally lucky and you're just but then you have no idea what worked, you're just no idea. So, but you said something there, when you say that you identify which tags are maybe weak, can you go deeper there? Cause somebody does no idea, how do you identify what's a weak tag?
That is one of the,
and it's a loaded question too. It's tough.
Yeah. And, maybe people will think that, I'm working for EverBee by saying this, but I actually use your tool all the time.
Oh, nice. How do you use it for this? I'm curious. I
use the tool to, I actually collect together all the tags. I use the feature in your tool that you can track it with over time and then make the changes as soon as it's identified that the tag is not ranking high. So I'll get rid of the bottom stuff, slap in the new stuff using your tool. That's really.
So you use a listing rank tracker, you're saying?
I use the listing rank tracker.
Oh, cool.
Religiously because it does actually work.
Well, it's fairly new, so that's interesting because we hadn't really pushed that feature a whole lot because we're still kind of in beta and we're trying to improve it over and over again. So that's cool to use that. So you'll track a listing. Let's say you make a new listing for a cup today, right? And some personalized cup. You put it on there and then you track the listing in listing rank tracker.
Yep. And it'll come up with a score and then you've got to take it, you've got to pull stuff away and replace the new stuff that's in there according to the scores that appear in the listing tracker. That's a very effective way to increase your visits. Just if I had only one way to go forward and I had one listing and I wanted that listing to double in its visits, that's the first thing that I would be doing is using that rank tracker and also gathering the data as you put it. It's so easy to gather it from the highest best sellers in the last 3 months or something like that. I would make a filter and then, put the ideas into the listing tracker and then monitor it, make the changes, and you'll see the visits.
Yeah, performs. Interesting. Okay, cool. I'll have to we'll have to get a video from you one day or do a screen share or something like that to really dive in there because I'd be curious how you use that.
Totally. I'm actually writing material for the course members that we have.
Oh, that's awesome.
Help them to actually make progress. It's one of the most efficient tools I've ever seen that's out there right now.
That's awesome, man. Cool. Well, thank you for sharing that. Okay. So how many people that are you ongoing, how many shops are you seeing every month or how do you do it? Every week or every month or how do you do it?
I'm analyzing people's listings on a daily basis. I probably see modifications and the best modifications, hundreds of listings every single day, actually seeing the results of the change. So it's a constant thing from titles to tags to pictures. And the goal right now for a lot of our clients and what we're teaching right now, I think it's good for everybody, is to try to reduce the amount of time to make a quality listing, but to get your flow right, get your flow in your creation, batch out a little block and focus on that and block it out even on your calendar to have time management with your creation in your Etsy listings. And that's the result is that you don't do this power week where you've created 50 listings and the next week nothing. Like have
Sure.
something that is blocked out and it's part of your work day,
Process.
your process, getting that process down, because if the process is followed, the results will come, but it doesn't take a week or two. It takes longer.
I love that. Can you walk us through like an example of like, for the person that's never really thought about process when it comes to this stuff at all? Because they're like, maybe they're brand new to this and they're listening to this on the road, driving home, maybe their kids are napping and they're listening to this. Like what does a process even look like for an Etsy seller that wants to be successful?
Yeah, so they should view their listing as like 6 different pieces as an example.
Okay.
What they'll want to do is they want to, whatever, however they track this, they want to have a best practice, which is of course using a good tool like yours as an example, but they'll want to use it. They'll want to track and work on one part of that listing at a time. So put it in a draft, put like 10 in a draft in Etsy as an example, create that block, and then start with, do all your tags. You have to have your images, but then go onto all the tags, put all the tags in there, and then work on, your titles, but do them all, because when you're thinking of this product and you're going through like all 10 of them, then publish them, look at the results, and then, wait for a period of time and then start working on just one part of it. Just one part, not all of them at once.
So this is like, sorry to cut you off. This is more like the listing creation process, right? So there's like a few different processes. So there's like obviously the research process, and then there's like the product creation process, which is where you actually create the product, right? And now we're in like, I know these are my words, maybe not your process, but phase 3 would be like create the listings process. And basically you segment that into 6 different steps in a listing creation process, right? Is that what we're talking about?
Yeah. And you just because, when you're focusing just on images, like do all your images, batch them together when you create those. Once your mind is in the zone, it's very focused on it, you're going to do the very best job. Instead of diverting your attention to tags, do all your images at once, do all your titles at once. Then once you publish, see the results, then do the same thing again. Focus on improvements for tags, identify the ones, get rid of them, watch the results, then on to titles, and just repeat with each.
I get that. I mean, I get that for sure. It's batching work. It's like there's a thing in the mental performance type of world, right? And it sounds like you're very familiar with that. Is more like there's switching costs, right? And these switching costs are extremely high when you have to like switch from distraction to distraction, and you actually lose so much because it takes time to ramp up into thinking about tags maybe, or thinking about images for sure. It makes you have to switch your mind from like going from tags into like the image creation process, creating nice mock-ups, creating a nice main image that has like, call to actions on it, or, free shipping badge on it, and all this stuff. And then you go into like the supporting images, like that's different than creating tags or titles. That's what you're saying.
Power focus gets some of the best results, and just block everything else out, do your image creation, then on to the next part. It's just going to get you to a different level when you're in that zone and no distractions. It's going to allow you to do the work that you do best with your creative ability.
I like that. Would you say that this is like, in my head, this is more like level 2 seller, meaning like level 1 seller, just like, dude, just create a listing, like do research and then create a listing, create one listing and just like get the feel, and then like do it again and do it again. And then eventually the seller kind of graduates to like, okay, I'm serious about this e-commerce thing.
Sure. Yeah.
Would you agree with that? Or what do you think?
Yeah, so I think the level 1 person, as you're describing, is, just put something up, throw it out there. And I meet with people every day with the same old story. It's the same old story. I tried this and that, and I know I want to do this, but, nothing's really working here. But
Sure.
I find when we sit down together and we make a plan, okay, plan before you work, right? Plan it out. What are you going to do? What's the image going to be? What are you selling? What's the package going to look like? And don't even start until you have completed it. How are you going to deliver this? How are you going to create this image? Where are you going to go to publish it and deliver it to so all this, have it all done clearly in mind, make your shopping list, so to speak, of 10 of them, then go for it. Once you've planned it out, and you'll find that the effects of this will just improve with each batch that you make. And instead of having listing goals, it's more like it should be have visit goals instead of listing goals.
I like that.
Yeah, like have the have the visits, because you'll eventually see the conversion rate. You might get 100 visits to one sale as an example, which is very common on Etsy. So your goal really should be to work with your income goal as it relates to a visit goal. And the blocks of listings that someone creates should be monitored so that you can actually envision in your mind the visit ratio, like the visits per day heading up to where you need to get them to, so that you can have your income goal in mind.
I like that. I like that a lot. It gives somebody a framework. And we call this frameworks, right? A framework of like on how to actually achieve their goals. So, and correct me if I'm wrong, this is how it sounds like you're thinking it more like, hey, set your goal, whatever it is. Let's say it's $10,000 a month. It's just revenue. Let's just talk revenue because it's easier. So therefore, if we know the conversion rate, right, on average for your niche maybe is 2%. By the way, if you don't know the average conversion rate for your niche, all you have to do is use EverBee, shameless plug, like literally type in the niche and then look at product analytics, and you can scroll to the right and see all the conversion rates for all these listings. It will literally tell you how many people views to conversions, and it'll say 1%, 2%, 5%, 6%, 4%. It averages out probably, would you agree, 2.5% or something like that?
Oh yeah. Well, depending on physical, yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Like, it can go, yeah, all over the place.
But then you can kind of build, if you know the conversion rate, then you can kind of build, like a model. I guess we would call this a financial model,
Yep.
But it's a model for you hitting your goals. And what you're saying is that going to map it to views, right? Obviously you need the sales, right? But map it to views somehow. So can we walk through that like framework, I guess?
Yeah. I'm just kind of thinking here of where to start with that.
So
mapping out your views over a 6-month period of time as an example, you should have a target for each month. So you might start with, I want 500, or what's reasonable if it's just one person that's working for about 2 hours a day as an example.
Okay, let's do that.
2 hours a day. And I wouldn't, if you had 2 hours a day, I would set myself a reasonable goal that you should be able to get somewhere between 10, like if it's just one person working by themselves, 10 and 50 visits per month that is organic without the ads.
Okay.
You turn ads on eventually, but you want to see your conversion hit a little higher before you turn those ads on, like proven conversion. You're good at this, you see the results, then turn those ads on at $1 to start with, just to see how they're doing.
Okay.
But on and off, otherwise you'll lose your position. But I don't want to go on a tangent too far into ads, but so at that spot, when you have like, okay, I'm going to get somewhere between, 50 is my goal for month number 1
per day.
For number 2,
Are we talking?
Yeah,
Are we talking about 50 visits per day?
50 visits per day. But I found kind of interesting little data. I wish I could do just a little case study on this, but in my mind is a case study, Cody. One interesting little detail I found out is that most shops that want to make their side hustle into their main hustle, they need somewhere usually, usually it's somewhere between 500 and 1,000 visits per day. That's like the average goal. So, if you have a 6-month period of time, your first month's always going to be the lowest. It's going to be the hardest. And then month 2 is you could almost double it in month 2, month 3, but that should kind of be, there should be
I get that. So just to back that up with data, if we know, let's just assume that the average conversion rate is 2%, make it super easy. 2%, I think, is fair.
Yep.
Okay. And if you're saying that somebody that's really wanted to like make this thing their side hustle and to turn into their full-time hustle, then they need about 500 to 1,000 visits or listing views, I guess, like literally clicks like onto that listing, right? Per day. And based on that, let's just say 500 visits per day.
Yep.
Times 2%, very simple math, equals 10 sales per day, right? And if your average order value, meaning your products typically sell for about, let's say $25, that's $250, right? $250 in revenue per day. Now going to double that to 1,000 visits a day, it's the same math, 2%. Now it's 20 sales. Now it turns into $500 revenue per day, right?
Exactly. And one other little detail just to throw in there that would add value to what, like the substance of what you're saying. If your profit margin, like we've come to understand that the average POD, print on demand profit margin, not digital, but the print on demand, you should make somewhere every time, you should strive for a profit margin of $8 to $12. $8 to $12 range should be your average, whether it's a shirt, whether it's a mug or any other POD product. $8 to $12 should be your aim. That way, think about the 500 clicks with 2% conversion. You're going to make that $10 on average. And that's how you're going to get to your full-time income that you want to get in 6 months. And so if you don't, like a lot of people will throw their listings up, they will lower their ask so that they're thinking that, oh, way more views are going to come in. But it's not always that way. You're just selling yourself short and all that effort you're throwing out the window. You should strive from the beginning to have a profit margin that makes sense and is sustainable.
Yep. And so based on that math, if you had, I have my calculator here in front of me, $8 to $12, let's say $8 profit per sale. Then if we said our example is, let's say it's a $30 print on demand, whatever item, right? Sweater, shirt, whatever it is, they're $30 total, including shipping. That would be what is it? 8 divided by $30. And that's a 26% profit margin. That sound about right?
Yep.
In the minimum. Okay. So 26% margin, or higher, like you said, or $12. And that would be probably a 35% profit margin. Cool.
Our shirts, the Etsy shirts, by the way, in the last couple of months have taken a little bit of a dip. You used to be able to make about $10 to $12 quite easily, but now we're seeing that the shirts, the POD shirts, the Bella Canvas standard shirt that everybody loves, that it's, $7 or $8 is what it seems to be getting. So it's come down a couple notches in the last couple of months just because of more volume, but unique still wins. Text over image always right now. Text combined with image is awesome. A couple other things that are trending is flat lays are better than models. We're seeing that when they're displayed in a flat lay with the products in the pictures and mock-ups, not being printify, not being printful, not their mock-ups, but unique mock-ups associated with those products without having your pictures with other items that are crowding in. You just want one or two mood items, but you want the focus to be on that shirt. I
love that. You're getting some design ideas right here. Like for sure. I agree with this. And by the way, like mock-ups are always like a struggling part for sellers. So if, obviously don't use like the standard ones that are like, look cheesy, right? Like go either make your own or probably go buy them on Etsy. There's a lot of Etsy shops actually specifically for mock-ups and they're awesome. Like they put a lot of effort in that specific niche. But let me ask you this, like, where do you guys typically make or get your mock-ups for a lot of your customers, a lot of your guys' shops?
Etsy is one of the best places for it.
Okay.
One of the things we've noticed like a little trend that might be helping the people that sell t-shirts is as an example that are using Etsy to sell t-shirts. And just think of the logic or the psychology behind this when it comes to a picture, is that somebody might be gravitated to purchase a mock-up from an Etsy shop with a beautiful, like a beautiful blonde woman or something like that, a beautiful woman that's displaying this shirt, and they think that that's going to be the key. However, what happens when a woman looks at the shirt is sometimes they think to themselves, I'm not like that. I'm not like that beautiful person, or whatever they may feel about themselves. And they actually kind of push it away, and they rather have no model in there at all because they don't feel like they're a model in that shirt. They envision themselves in that product. So that's actually turning into a trend away from those beautiful people that are displaying these products. That's why the flat lays are taking over.
Interesting.
New trend that's happening.
Interesting. That's an interesting theory for sure. I mean, I understand that. I would probably say I'm more like, I haven't thought about this as deeply as you have at all. But I certainly need to see a person touching and feeling and wearing this product. But I don't know. I haven't really thought about that. So that's a super interesting observation.
Little hooks that can be built into those pictures are even better. For instance, if text is king, and if you can put a really popular image with that text, make it smaller, but have that text as king.
Like what kind of text? What's an example of this?
3 or 4 words.
Like free shipping, or are we talking like buy today, or like what kind of
message on the shirt? The message on the catchphrase on the shirt. That's what I'm talking about. Specific. Gotcha. The script on the shirt. So 3 or 4 words, but one little tactic that some are using that's just boosting their visits out of the roof, you could say, is underneath a message that people identify with. Say it's a funny women's shirt, as an example. I love my man, or whatever it is. Underneath, there should be a small 3 or 4 words underneath that you can hardly see. The reason for that is that somebody's going to identify with that message. Oh, I'm going to buy that for my wife or whatever it is. And then, oh, but what's underneath? I can't quite see it. They click on it to get a larger view.
Interesting.
And then they start to go through that listing and, oh, that's what I want. And they purchase it. So it's more clicks. It may get more clicks, but less conversion, but more clicks mean more potential purchases.
Sure. Yeah. Your click-through rate goes up. Awesome. Okay, cool. Wow. This is tons of nuggets. I know we talked about already. We already talked all day about this stuff. But where can people find you, man? Like, where can people find your service or just follow you, like learn more about you, all that good stuff?
Yeah. So you can find us. We have a website, sweetspotmarketing.ca. That's our website, but we also have a TikTok channel. Sweet Spot Coach is sorry, not Sweet Spot Coach. Etsy Coaching is our hashtag. That's how you can follow TikTok, and you can see a lot of the little tips and tricks. And also, we try to keep up with what's happening today. You can see all that stuff over there.
Yeah, you guys give like a lot of value, like a lot of free content. Obviously, you coming on here literally and sharing like this stuff for free. By the way, somebody could literally take some of this stuff and go and apply it and find success, right? Obviously, there's a lot of details that we did not talk about today, a million details. But the point is, like, we appreciate you coming on the channel and like literally sharing your knowledge,
Yeah, it's changing very quickly. And to miss out right now when there's so much activity, so much happening, a lot of people are saying, oh, April's, and the spring and summer is, it's expecting a downturn, but everybody should not be thinking that negative way. They should think to themselves with the future projections. And even if there's a downturn, the ones that win in the downturn are the ones who are getting their shop optimized and grabbing the clicks that are leaving from other shops that aren't optimized. So there's still a massive market, no matter what we look at it.
When you say downturn, I know we're trying to wrap up, sorry, but this is interesting. You mean like economic downturn?
Yeah.
Okay, gotcha. So you're in Canada, by the way. I'm in US. So Canada, you guys are kind of feeling the same type of US type of downturn type of talk. Is that what you're saying?
It's mirrored for sure. Same
okay.
thing.
So I wonder, like, I don't know, like about our audience, because we have a global audience, right? Like literally it's our EverBee users or EverBuilders or whatever we want to call us, right? They're all over the world. So I don't know, like their local markets and how they're feeling. I know everybody like hears about the US for the most part, like, oh, there's an economy, there's, potential downturn, all this stuff. But I'd like to talk about that for a second, because we haven't talked about it yet on the podcast, and what your views are on like the Etsy seller or the e-commerce seller kind of going into this like potential recession thing that they've been talking about for the last 5 years. How should somebody be, what kind of mindset should they be having going into this thing?
Yeah, it's kind of funny because the negative mindset will stop a lot of people from making efforts, right? But the ones who have, and with every recession, there's winners and there's losers always. But if you have the winning mentality that I'm going to really optimize everything to the maximum potential, so the rest of them are kind of giving up, and it gives you the advantage in these downturns.
Love that.
Learn new things and not to give up and keep plumbing, like just ignore that noise and just focus. Because
that's right.
One little piece I heard the other day is that, oh, April's down for sales. Okay. And then I see shops that are just starting that are just
crushing.
Like, what are they talking about, right?
Yep.
If that person listened when they started that shop, like, it's crazy some of the thinking that's going around, but it does stop people from putting the effort into it. So ignore the noise and go forward. I
love that, man. I totally align with that thinking. Like, guess what? Like, times are always hard, right? Whatever which way, like it's never easy, And in fact, recessions and like economic downturns or whatever, they're an opportunity. It's an opportunity because all the other people that they just won't even try, or they'll be giving up, and that just creates more opportunity for you. And I guess then the person will say the negative, mindset will kick in and say, well, there's less people buying though, because like less people have money to buy. Sure. And like my mindset is like, that's just nonsense. I mean, are there less people buying? Of course, right? But like, that doesn't mean there's not people buying. There's literally billions of dollars still flowing through this thing, no matter which way you cut it. People are always going to buy their stuff.
Yeah. And the word is on the street is that the future will be Etsy more than any of the other platforms because of ease of purchase for the consumer. So Etsy's got the advantage. They're on the right platforms. We're content for, what's coming up. What we have going on, Cody, is a brand new way to make a living on Etsy. We're just publishing our very first time, helping out people in your community. There's a way to do this with Etsy, so you can partner up with other makers without reselling and have an incredible market. So create your own stuff, partner up with a couple locals, and go from this from multiple channels so you can make your living that you need. If people are thinking about it, planning strategically, they can reach their goals, and it's totally possible in 2023.
Interesting, man. We'll have to share that when you guys finalize that too, and make that live, because that'd be super cool. I love it, man. So appreciate it. By the way, I will link to all of Brad's TikTok and all of his pretty much all of his content, his website. I mean, TikTok and the website in the show notes and in the YouTube channel, all that good stuff. So we'll make sure that that's all clear.
It's awesome. You'll see a lot of Melissa, my wife, on there, but I'm the background SEO guy that
That's fun.
What's going on. So I'm stuck in the room, in the basement, in my little cave, working all the time here. Thanks, Cody.
Cool. Thanks, Brad. I appreciate you coming on. See you, man.
See ya.